Good evening. Just Facebook looks like it is telling folks that we are here. And I'm just going to wait for Hattie to pop on here and then we'll do a little introduction, get all settled, and um, get started on our June Biblio Talk. All right. Hey, Seth.
Hey, I think my volume up's way too high. Okay, say something now.
Okay. Oh, hey, Seth.
That's better. It was just a little trying to get the camera so like okay, my hair takes up the whole the whole picture, but that's okay. I got big hair. Come on, video.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry.
Mine's so terrible. Oh, you're like on again.
Can you hear me now?
All right. I can. For the moment, I can.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I was trying to make these comments because it covers your face, but I don't think I can do it. So I was trying to do that and I swiped it off and I swiped. So then it went to another page and then it like paused our live video. So.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, so, I'll just have to, I know what you look like. It's fine.
You do know what I look like. So that's probably A-okay.
Yeah. I'm sure, I'm going to try something.
I don't think there's anybody else here at this point, but.
No. I don't know Oh, yeah, I know. I just, that's all right. It'll be fine. I'll figure it out. How are you doing, sis?
Okay. I'm doing good. Spent the weekend cleaning, doing chores. Hezzy's coming on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So getting all prepped and ready for that.
That'll be fun.
Indeed. It will be fun. That'll be good.
Yeah. It is a beautiful day here. What is your guys' weather out there?
Okay. Yeah, we did not have a beautiful day. It was like rainy and like really humid, but like low 70s. So it kind of felt cold and rainy and humid all at once.
I hate it when it's cold and humid. It's so frustrating. It's the worst.
It's awful. I finally just broke down and turned the AC on because I'm just like, this is gross. Everything feels wet and cold.
I hate that. Yeah, it is absolutely the worst. I can't disagree.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's 7. So should we go ahead and get started?
Absolutely.
So I thought we would do an introduction again. So I'm Hannah Bergstrom, and I live in outside the cities of the Twin Cities of Minnesota. Probably name which cities, the cities. And I am a mom and a part-time pastor and a bibliophile, which was tested deeply this last couple of weeks. So, and I am one half of the book war.
Yes, I am the other half of the book war. I am Hattie Bergstrom, and I live just north of Philadelphia. And I teach theology to undergraduate students at University of St. Kate's. I teach online, and it is actually located in Minneapolis, St. Paul, so a little bit of connection there. I don't know if I would say I'm a bibliophile. I feel like that word isn't quite the right one for me.
No.
You're I don't feel like I'm like you and Dad, so I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, and you don't actually collect books.
No, I don't.
You've actually worked really hard to not have books.
To not collect books.
So.
That's true. So maybe like the opposite of a bibliophile in terms of like collecting books, but I love reading books. So yeah, utilize the free library, which I have to say, my husband is extremely happy that I go to the public library, the Bucks County Public Library here in Yardley. And there's a little shout out to them because honestly, I have never like ask for a book that they couldn't get me. It's a great, like they have the and it's like, if they're available, it's like 1, maybe 2 days before they can get it. So check out your public library.
To public libraries, man.
Yeah, they're great. They're
they're great. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So this month's first Biblio Talk is actually just, we are going to talk about some of the books that we've just finished or are currently reading. Because I was on my silent retreat for 10 days. So we didn't have time to plan much.
Yeah, because I couldn't talk to her, so.
Because I do a technology fast during that time. So Hattie. Oh, also it is Pride Month.
Yes.
So shout out to all those who are celebrating Pride and taking time out of their June schedules to live into any of those festivities that you might choose to. And we here at the Book War are all for a party, and particularly parties for folks being who they are.
Absolutely.
So, Hattie, do you want to start? We didn't actually talk about this. So you want to start with a book?
Yeah. So here's sort of, this is what I said to my husband just the other day. I'm like, so I spent the last like 3 months really sort of like immersed in like that anti-racist book fest like genre, right? I was just like really into it. I loved everything that I read. I don't regret a single second of it. But it's like, it's heavy stuff. It's like, it's heavy stuff, and it's real stuff, and it matters, and it's super important. But the calendar kind of switched over to June, and I'm like, you know what? I kind of feel like some fun summer reading. So Hannah will know about this series because I talk about it all the time because I love it so much. This actually, you won't believe this, Hannah, this is only my second time reading this series. So the first time I listened to this series on Audible, and I fell in love with it, and I've recommended it like to literally everyone and their dog since. And this, I want to show you how like this is the series in book form. It's like almost probably 2,000 pages, and this is the what is it called? It's the Adventures of the Athena Club. So it's the Extraordinary Adventures of the Athena Club, I think is what it's called. The series, and the first one is The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. I'll hold it up there so you can see it. Finished that one in 2 days, by the way.
Well done.
Yeah. 2 days.
Well done.
It's so much fun. I'll tell you kind of briefly what it's about. This is the second one. This is the big fatty I just posted on our Instagram. This one's like 700 pages, and this one is European travel for the monstrous gentlewoman. So you can just like imagine how fun this is. And then the last one is the sinister mystery of the mesmerizing girl. So the premise of these is they're sort of like this Victorian mystery kind of thing, which everybody on here knows that I love that anyway. But the fun thing about this is all the characters are sort of like the female offspring of classic Victorian Goth literature. So the Alchemist's Daughter is Mary Jekyll, who of course is Dr. Jekyll's daughter. And then she has a sister who she finds, and her name's Diana Hyde, right? So she's the daughter of Mr. Hyde.
Of course, right.
So those are like the main characters, and they're kind of like the main protagonists, but then they sort of collect and all sort of band together to make this Athena Club, like with Justine Frankenstein. So like Frankenstein never actually made the female version of his monster, but the monster wanted him to, right? So, but in this story, Justine was made, and so she's part of this story. Anyway, and there's a bunch of them, and they sort of like get together, and they like solve these mysteries, and they find each other. And it's just sort of like this really great, like, women's power, you know, like we can support each other and like make it in this world, even though we're totally weird, and messed up, because they're all weird, right? They're all like monsters, right? So this is the European travel for the monstrous gentlewoman, right? So they're all like these monsters. So anyway, I'm in the middle of that, and I absolutely adore the series. It's just super fun. And even with that, there's just sort of some fun like themes about, you know, like women supporting each other and you know, making it in a man's world, that kind of stuff. So so there's some good stuff in there, even though for me it's just like it's super fun. So that's what I'm in the middle of and absolutely enjoying it. Like,
and how many are there?
There's
total?
Just the 3.
Oh,
there's
it's just
the 3. Yeah, it's just the trilogy. Yeah.
Oh, so you're in the middle of the big fatty.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yep.
So,
I'm very excited to talk about mine as well, because very much like you, I feel like, yeah, we got heavy there for a while, and in a good way, but you know, you have to take your breaks with reading. And I went on my retreat and I tried very hard not to pack books, because that's not really, oftentimes I will take them in order to distract me from what I'm supposed to be doing on my retreat, which is nothing. It's weird. Let's just be honest, it's weird. But I was very proud of myself. I took I had 3 physical books that were novels. One of them I was almost finished with, and I only allowed myself to read 1 or 2 chapters every night right before bed. And then the other 2, I didn't even get until day 5, which I was very proud of myself for. Thank you.
Good girl.
I also did read mine in like 2 days, like in a day, but I was doing nothing else, so it doesn't really count. But the reason I am so excited about these is because they actually fit in so great with our Pride Month theme for this month. We've been talking about Pride and offering some different reading lists, and some people have given some great suggestions, both here on Instagram, I think, and as well as on our Facebook group. But the first one, the one that I actually had on for whatever month is before June,
May.
For AAPI month was She Who Becomes the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. It's so good. Okay, so it is very good, first off. And these are all fantasy books. And for those of you who might not know, much like Hattie loves a good Victorian mystery, I love a good fantasy book, and I have found great joy lately in fantasy books written by women of color. Like across the board, I've just been really enjoying that. And these fantasies and world building on top of mythology and religion that I don't know anything about, and it's just really kind of a fun, interesting thing to kind of. So, She Who Reads the Sun is
the sun.
I said reads the sun, didn't I?
You did.
Became the sun. But the thing is about this book, both of these books, but is all of the gender bending. There's a great deal of gender bending. There's a great deal of LGBTQ representation, and different kinds of relationships, both sexual as well as platonic. The main character in this particular book is a woman who is a young girl who actually takes on the identity of her brother, and like what that does to her, and like her understanding of her own gender, and that's really interesting. And then the main she's the protagonist. The main antagonist is a eunuch, so that's really interesting as well. And so part of the gendering around that and what that has meant for him and his identity as well, as he's like the last of his clan. And anyway, so if you like, and it's one of the first like major epics that I've read in a long time. And it's not a huge book.
No, it's not.
But it is like from the very beginning of her life until like, it doesn't go all the way to the end, but there is an epicness to it that I was really surprised by. It was only in one book, right? Like we have these epic fantasies, but they always tend to be trilogies or series that just never stop, which we will not get into that.
Sometimes, yeah.
But very good. That in China, I think that's right. Yes, China. Yes, in the Central Plains of China. So, awesome. Definite winner. And then the other series that is, Hattie knows this, I love Rebecca Roanhorse. She is a fantastic author. The first thing I read of hers was Trail of Lightning and Storm of Locust, which is her 6th World series. It's only 2. I'm waiting for 3 and 4. It'll be fine. I'm a grown-up. But she's just a fantastic author. I've read her middle school. She wrote a middle school fantasy, and me and my boys, I read it out loud to them. Such great stuff. but she has a new series, and it is Black Sun is the first book one, and then Fevered Star is book two. And so I finished these as well on Friday. I finished Fevered Star on Friday. Also, just like, they're just beautiful.
They're gorgeous.
Because they're just like such gorgeous covers too.
Beautiful, yeah.
And again, incredible LGBTQ representation, gender bending. And what's great about this particular series, I think, or one of the things about it that's great, is that there isn't a great deal of conversation about it. It's just what it is. Like, there's some people who don't like or other people because of their genders. Like, there's still like some misogyny, you know, there is some of that, but like most of the time it's just like, meh. And there's like a third gender, which is like the pronouns are start with an X, so XIR. I say Zer, and but I don't know if that's right.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I've never understood what an X stands for. I said that to Lionel, and he's like, okay. These are set on the stories of the Americas, of the indigenous people of America, of the Americas, both.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a fantasy, but it is set in that sort of a historical fantasy. If you're going to use like, you know, the kind of mythology of that. So it is fantastic. Her characters, she writes great characters, and I find them funny in like a snarky sort of way, most of them. She writes great women. Yeah, they're just really funny. So I do not know how many more are coming of this particular one, but it is honestly, and if you pick up anything of Rebecca Roanhorse, she also did write a Star Wars book. That's the only one I haven't read of hers. I know, Hattie, you would probably really.
I know. I feel like
did that.
It's
called
that Sun book for George for Christmas. Was that his book for Christmas?
Black Sun. Yes, I did buy him Black Sun.
Okay, I thought so. Did he read it? I don't know if he read it.
I don't know if he read it.
I don't know. I'm gonna ask him when we get off of here if he read that or not.
But her Star Wars book is Star Wars Resistance Reborn.
Okay.
So that's the only one I haven't read of hers. But
all right.
But I was thinking about this, that I didn't read these, even though we've been talking about like the LGBTQ and pride and like wanting to represent and have better representation around that in our literature and in our reading. And I think what's great is that I just read the books because they were the books I wanted to read, and it was just there, right? Like, and that's the dream.
Yeah,
that's the dream of all,
right. Yeah.
Of all representation. Is that it doesn't have to be, you know, here, you know, just a list of, you know, it's just the books. They're just the way the books are written, and there's just some really great ones out there. And so I was really when I was reading Rebecca Roanhorse, I'm like, man, this is so great. This is so perfect for what we were talking about. But so those are my big ones. I do have like one other one, but we don't have to talk about it. Did you have another one?
I want to jump off of what you're saying though about like, picking up a book because you actually just want to read it, and then like lo and behold, there's LGBTQ plus characters and so on and so forth in relationships and so on and so forth. So Hannah knows that I was super excited about this book. It's by Isabella Allende. And we had read a different book by Isabella Allende for our book club last fall, I think. And Hannah and I, we were talking, we were sort of brainstorming books for our beach reads coming up in July. And I'm like, I'm reading this to her, and she's like, I'm reading, you know, just like the synopsis of it to Hannah. And I'm like, oh, this sounds so great. It sounds so great. I would love to read this on the beach. And Hannah's like, that is not a beach read, Hattie. And I'm like, oh, you know, you're right. It's not.
It's a Hattie beach read. It is a Hattie beach read. It's not a beach read for any other person on the planet.
Anyone else.
You.
So it got nixed for July beach read, which that's probably fair. But I picked it up and read it anyway because I thought it sounded amazing, and it was really amazing. And it just so happened, like just like one of the sort of like main characters, not the character, not Violetta. She gets married to a couple of gentlemen and is heterosexual relationships, but the people around her are, you know, sort of part of this kind of like gender bending and LGBTQ plus the like those kind of identifiers. And so it was so great just like having this story where that was just like part of the story. It was just like, these are who these people are. And yeah, and I just picked it up because she's a great writer. I read something, you know, another book by her, and I was like, ooh, this one just sounded really good. And just like, I don't want to give anything away. It's very good. It's sort of epic in the same way that Hannah was talking about hers, in the sense that this covers this woman's, Violetta's life from being born to dying. And she was born during the Spanish flu pandemic in 1920. And then she dies at the end in 2020 in the middle of the COVID pandemic. This isn't a real story. This is not a real story, Hannah. This is
I know, but how interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the way you reacted.
No. I was just like, oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah. No, it's super good. It's very, very good. It's Peru. The woman lives in Peru. Violetta lives in Peru. And I will tell you, I learned a lot about like the politics that were going on between like North America, you know, and America, the U.S., United States, and like South America at the time, and especially during the World War, because I didn't really like, there was just all this political stuff that I'm just like, oh my gosh, I had like no idea, you know, that a lot of this stuff was going on. That being said, it was fiction, but you know, it's very much based in this very historical period. She's
a great researcher. She like everything I've read of hers too is very well grounded in a reality, like historical reality.
Exactly. And this was just a great read. It really was. I think I read this one in just a couple of days as well. It's not super, you know, not a super.
That's not super long. Yeah.
No.
Great.
But it was great. So for like me beach read, it would have been perfect.
Yeah.
But it did get ixnayed from our beach read for like normal people who aren't freaks like me.
It did. Yeah. We'll make a Hattie Freaks beach read list.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so my last one, I just actually finished it today. This is a reread. I read this book many, many, many times, and it is wild how much I enjoy this book. But it is World War Z.
You told me about this.
I know. By Max Brooks. It's so good. I read it for the first time long before this horrible movie came out. Don't watch this movie. And anybody likes it, I don't like. Terrible. It's the most horrible movie in the whole world. I mean,
Just leave it alone, Hannah. It's okay. Move on.
Can't talk about it. But I read it before the movie for the first time, and then actually it's one of the very first books I bought on Audible. And it is these really short. It's World War Z, an oral history of the zombie war. And I was telling this to Hattie. The very first time I read, the way that Max Brooks writes is he writes it as though this is real. Like, so it is oral history. So it's these people telling their stories of what happened to them during the zombie wars. So it's like this interviewee dynamic. And they're just these like short little snippets of that from all over the globe in completely, you know, so you have it from the politicians, and you have military people, and you have civilians, and you have a pilot who went down, and like her story of like what that was like. And yeah, so you just have this like huge breadth, and you learn things about like this would have been in the 90s. Anyway, but about politics as well around that stuff. But it is, I remember the very first time I was like looking stuff up because he writes in a way that sounds so real.
Yeah.
And I also read his newer book, De-Evolution or Devolution. I'm not sure exactly how you're supposed to say that word, but and it's about Bigfoot. I looked up so much, and I know it's fiction, but like, there's zombies, for God's sake.
Like, it can't be real, Hannah.
I know, it cannot be real. It is Bigfoot. Anyway, but in Audible, if you do audio books, it is an absolute excellent purchase. Because they have an all-star cast. Nathan Fillion is on it. Alan Alda. Like, there's just a lot of really famous voices that you would recognize as well. And they do and then Max Brooks is actually the interviewer. So in the book, the interviewer asks questions, and you know, there's like some back and forth, but it is such a delight every time. And it's a weird thing. I do not like zombies. I do not like the vampire zombie, that whole strain of fantasy. Dark, I don't know if that's like dark fantasy. I'm not exactly sure what the right term is, but it's not exactly my thing. I don't love it. But this particular zombie book is so good. And I do recommend it. I actually have a note in here. I had a friend, this like big long note.
Yeah.
Who was in the hospital and asked me to give her some books that would be like good hospital reads while she, really, and I sent her this one. I'm like, I know it's weird, but trust me on this.
Like,
but hear me out.
Yeah.
It's really short snippets. It's not super long, and then and they don't tie together exactly, right? So you don't have to have this like huge strain of like trying to remember this whole thing. So I love this book. It's
you
so
sold me on it. I feel like, okay, that's going to be the next audiobook that George and I are going to listen to, like when we drive back. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to get that one because that's something that we would both love. And I'm so.
It's absolutely, Lainell and I have both read it many, many, many times because it is just, I think this is probably my fourth. And I don't reread a lot of books.
Right.
But the ones that I do, I reread and reread and reread. I do have a couple of Audible ones that I just really, really like. So that helps as well. So those are the ones I have.
Okay, a quick switch. We're going to switch gears because this is nothing like that at all. And then we're going to reveal our LGBT Pride book, which I have a copy of if you don't have one.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
Okay, very good. Okay, so this is nothing like World War Z.
Oh, I forgot you finished that.
I haven't finished it yet. Okay, because it's a big fatty. Okay, and I think this is the same number of pages. Yeah, it's actually fewer pages than like the European Travel of the Monstrous Gentlewoman. This is fewer pages, but this literally takes like 5 times as long to read. Right? This is pure history. This is like history book for history book's sake. But I love it, and it was so funny because. Like I threw a pic up on Instagram and Facebook, and it got so much action. Like people were like, "Oh, I love that book. I read it," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!"
I know, and like you just picked it up at Content when you were here. Like you just saw it, and you're like, "Oh, this is a pretty book," and you picked it off the history shelf, and you're like, "Oh, it's even more interesting now that It's a pretty purple book.
I know, it's such a pretty cover, and it's the Silk Roads, and like the subtitle is so great, A New History of the World. You know, it's like, oh, this is super interesting. So basically, it really is a history of the Silk Roads, which of course, like basically, like the Silk Roads, like we have this very sort of particular picture of what that means, but in this book, it really is a history of commerce coming and going through the Middle East. Because it's really where that was the hub. Okay. So what came and went changed all around it, but it always came through the hub, right?
Right.
Sort of where it was coming from, kind of shifted and changed over time, over 2,000 years or so. And so it's really sort of that history of how it changed and why it changed. And yes, one of our people just said this looks interesting. It is. It's very, very interesting. And it's a new perspective. Oftentimes, especially in America, this is certainly my experience, and I think this is Hannah's experience as well, and I think most American experiences with our educational system, we really only have this very particular sort of like Western-centric history that we're taught. And we don't really understand that there's like a whole lot of other world out there and a lot of other perspectives on the histories that we're learning, right? So this is absolutely worth it. It is it takes a while to read, but it's really good. He writes really, in it, I wouldn't say it's easy to read, but I would say that it's very digestible. If you don't mind just kind of sitting there and just reading and hacking away at it, it really, it's worth it. It's worth your time. You're not going to regret like taking the time to read it. And having this sort of like, the different perspective of the Silk Roads and that hub that really was the Middle East and Persia, Mesopotamia, like that really is that hub.
It's like where the history comes from.
Yeah. I know.
It's Eddie Izzard, by the way.
I mean, like we could like go on and on, right? I mean, you think about Islam and Christianity and
Yep.
Judaism, all from there. You know, I
Yep.
mean, India's a little further over, but like obviously Hinduism and India had a huge impact, as well as Buddhism,
Right.
coming from China and across India and so on and so forth. So anyway, and he goes into some of that too, you know, because that was super
Awesome.
influential as well. So it's a great read. It's called The Silk Roads: A New History of the World by Peter Frankopan, Frankopan, for anyone interested. And it looked like maybe somebody on our viewers were. So let's do our reveal
Yes.
before we get caught up.
So for our next Biblio Talk, we are going to read a book, the same book, and then actually speak about that particular book. And in honor of Pride Month, we picked Felix Ever After, which is actually a young adult lit book. Hattie, I didn't know if you knew that.
I think you actually mentioned it at some point when we were talking
Okay.
about it. Oh, and it does say young adult right on the side of mine because I got mine from the library, so it says
Oh,
right on the
so
side.
it says young adult. So, and I don't know a ton about it. It was, I think it was on a bunch, I think it was on the YA, like Goodreads, last year maybe? Was it, I think it was 2020, 2021-ish that it came out, 2020. So, so it's relatively new, and yeah, it's fiction, and so we'll find out about it.
And we'll talk
and
about
it's a love story. Felix Ever After is an honest and layered story about identity, falling in love, and recognizing the love you deserve. So, yeah.
It sounds good.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes it's really, I really like picking up books that I really don't know anything about sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case anymore because I'm a little too much of a book nerd.
Yeah,
so
too much.
I know too much about books.
Yeah.
But
too true.
So it's nice to read something so we'll be doing that, and actually for our second June Biblio Talk, we will be doing it together. I mean, we always are together.
Yeah.
We are going to be in the same physical location.
Yeah.
And it'll be the last week of June sometime. We're not 100% sure what that's going to look like. We're going to be on family vacation with our whole family. So,
So we'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, we're still working on that timing. And we're going to be in Iowa. So, yeah. So fun times, but it will be nice. It'll be kind of fun to do a live video together in the same physical space.
Something different. So, we haven't done that before. Yeah.
So if there's any books that you are currently reading or have just finished that you have loved and want to add into the comments after this gets posted, if you're watching right now, please let us know. We are always up for recommendations. My bibliophile heart is always happy to purchase another book, and I do use my library as well, Dakota County in Minnesota.
Yes. But mine's Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So, also remember to, if you would like to subscribe, we do just a monthly newsletter. And you can do that just at www.thebookwar.com. Super easy. You just go on there and there's a subscribe thing that'll pop up, or there's one on the right side for you if you'd like to subscribe to our newsletter. Otherwise, feel free to follow us here on Instagram. We also have a page over on Facebook, and then most of our videos do get put up on YouTube as well. Just like cover our bases. Covered,
yep.
Get everything covered.
You do a good job with all this stuff, Anna. You got us in the world, in the tech world. So ooh, Sea of Tranquility. You know, I have heard of that. One of our viewers said she just finished Sea of Tranquility. Because
that is the same woman who wrote what is her? Yes, Emily St. John Mandel. Because she wrote another YA book that Jesse had me read, and it's about a pandemic. And it just came out. HBO did the show. I read it.
It's not 13 Reasons.
No. It's about a pandemic.
Oh, about the pandemic. I don't know. Maybe our viewer will know. She's like keeping us on point. I'm not sure.
I was like, I'll look at my phone. I can't look at my phone. I'm using my phone. But anyway, her other book as well, and it just came out in a miniseries. I'm pretty sure it was HBO. Station 11. Thank you. You are delightful. We're so grateful that you're here today.
Thank goodness.
Give us all the answers to the questions that we can't remember.
Can't think of it off the top of our heads.
But yes, Station 11, which is also very, very, very good. And I've only heard good things about the Sea of
Yeah,
Save
I know.
Tranquility.
That's been like, yeah, Sea of Tranquility. That's been popping up all over the place for me. I have not looked into it, so I'm definitely going to, though.
Yeah.
Not quite as terrifying.
I know. Station 11 came out before the pandemic, if I remember correctly, but a lot of people had said like it was really good, and then they read it during the pandemic, and it was like a little too close to home for folks. So yeah, if you do get, if you have some of those things that can happen to you in reading, like maybe stay away from that one. But but yeah,
that's great.
Anywho, all right.
Okay, thanks for the recommendation.
Thank you so much.
That was awesome. Yeah. Okay, and yeah, I think that's pretty much wraps it up for the night. Yeah, him?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for joining us.
Have a great Sunday night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.